Well, as the ninth largest city in Indiana, Noblesville is known for its historic downtown and more than 100 miles of trails.
Yeah, but if you drive through the Hamilton County city, you can see there's a lot more happening there than just that.
Our partners at Fox 59 in Indianapolis reporting on the growth spurt taking place in Noblesville. It includes retail, housing, and even a new multi-use arena making big noise in the city's Innovation Mile District.
Boom, baby!
Slick Leonard's signature Boom Baby and Noblesville's new NBA G League team will tie it all together as we look at what else is on the horizon with Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen on the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by the mayor of Noblesville, Indiana, the 29th mayor of Noblesville, Chris Jensen. And Mayor, thanks for taking the time.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And maybe I should start this by just saying boom, baby, because
boom, baby. Slick Leonard is smiling down as we say that today.
Yeah, and that a reference, obviously, to the Noblesville Boom, the new name of the Pacers G League team that will be playing in the arena at Innovation Mile. And I had the chance, Mayor, to walk through the new arena just a couple of days ago. And I must say it's very impressive. Quite a facility. I know it's going to be used not only for basketball, but a number of other things. I want to talk about the private investment that has gone into your city in your tenure, $1 billion plus, but this has to be the highest profile. Give us the lowdown. How did this whole thing begin?
Well, I chuckle at this and say, this was not on my mayoral bingo card when I started this journey nearly 6 years ago. But post-COVID, I was approached by our good friends at the Indiana Pacers, wanted to meet with us. And honestly, Gary, I kind of thought they were coming to talk about re-engaging the donuts and folks around Indianapolis back into downtown as they look to kind of revitalize downtown and get people back to Pacers games. In fact, they wanted to pitch us on an idea about relocating their G League team. They were in Fort Wayne prior to, and I think the challenge there during COVID, they all played within a bubble, and they saw the benefit of that. Oftentimes, 54% of NBA players have played in the G League. So these players want to be around the Pacers. They want to be in and around the NBA anchor team. And so when they were in Fort Wayne, it kind of felt like an away game every time they played up there. And they really saw the benefit to being here. So came and met with us and told us their vision for the future. Felt like Noblesville could be a city that could be a great partner for them. And that embarked then us on a journey of several months long conversation to get us to breaking ground and now opening here in a few weeks, this new arena that is on time and under budget in the city of Noblesville.
Give me your gut feeling when you learned of these plans. You were in this meeting, think it was going to be one thing. It was something quite different that could be, in a sense, transformational for the city.
Yeah, and I, as a mayor, you have to be ready to duck and weave, right? Every day is a new day. That's why I love the job. I didn't have my head around this at first, to be honest. It took me a few minutes to get my feet on the ground and think this through. But I was honored that the Pacers sought us out. I know sometimes in life you have to be ready to act and strike while the iron's hot. And we were ready to make that move. Now I had to make sure that I had a city council that was ready to come alongside me. I don't make decisions just in a vacuum here in Noblesville. But my gut told me it was a great move for our community and could be a game changer for the east side of our community as we look to grow.
Now, talk about that decision-making process because, sounds like a great deal, but there are a lot of things involved. Obviously, it's a major investment, all kinds of things to consider. I think to Fort Wayne and their decision to build a minor league ballpark downtown, which at the time when it was being considered, the public polling, the opinion was against it. And the mayor and business leadership in the community felt so strongly that it would be a positive that they move forward with plans. It's been really, I think most would agree, the spark for massive development in that city. So as mayor, you have to make decisions that sometimes on the surface may sound easy, but maybe kind of tough.
Well, and oftentimes, first of all, I give Tom Henry and the team up there in Fort Wayne a major credit. 10 Caps is a game changer for that city. You have, as mayor and as elected leaders, we have to see the forest through the trees. We have to evaluate what we have in front of us today, but what is that going to look like in our community 10, 15, 20 years down the road. I always say I do my job for 4 reasons. My 4 kids. I want them to stay in Noblesville forever. And so I'm trying to make those long-term decisions. At the same time, I am investing taxpayer dollars. And so I have to make sure that I have a sound financial judgment in front of me before I go to the taxpayer to say, we're going to make this investment. Here's the upfront cost of that investment, but here is the long-term ROI of that investment. As we peel back the layers to look at the investment that we were making, and then we saw that over the course of 30 years, we're talking about $2 billion in net new spending for the state of Indiana and for this region, and nearly $1 billion in net new revenues. That's incredible for our community. So you have to be willing to have your talking points down. You have to be also willing to make sure that you have the data to back those decisions up. And then you have to lead boldly. I think going forward, certainly in the current tax climate that we have in the state of Indiana and the structure, and even some of the structural changes we're making in that tax climate, communities that are taking sound financial risks, if you will, into the future are going to be the game-changing catalytic communities that's going to lead the state of Indiana forward.
Give folks an idea of what they're going to experience in the arena at Innovation Mile. As I said, I was very impressed by the finishes, the look, kind of the open feel with the glass.
Yeah.
I guess that looks out to the east. I'm not sure which
It
direction.
actually looks to the north. I-69 kind of flips east and west there, so you're thrown off. But one of the things, we went down to the Texas area to tour some arenas. We wanted to get a feel for what arena of this size may look like. And one of the things that I was very passionate about, my number one negotiating tool with the Pacers was I wanted to make sure it was the Noblesville somethings. I wanted the city of Noblesville to be in the name. That is so important. As we go on ESPN and 25 media markets across the country, Canada and Mexico, Noblesville's name needs to be in there. That was priority number one. And then number two, when it came to the design of the arena, I really wanted some natural light in there as you go in. So you'll go in, and you saw it this week, Gary, that it's a 2-story grand hall that has LED screens. It's all glass to the north. And honestly, it doesn't feel like a sports arena when you walk in. It really feels like an event center, and that's done intentionally. And then down to the finishes, it's a first-class facility. You go up, and then you kind of enter the bowl of the arena itself, and there you find a 3,500 seats arena with a main basketball floor on the ground there that Boom will call home for about 40 days out of the year. But then you're going to see events, corporate events. It's near our corporate campus. It's in Innovation Mile. This is to be utilized for corporations, for trade shows. We've already had a ton of interest around the corporate community that's looking to utilize that. There'll be some small entertainment concerts there, but it's hard when you're next to the biggest brother in the world, which is Ruoff Music Center, the number one ranked outdoor amphitheater in the world based on ticket sales. So concerts probably not going to be the bread and butter there. But I will tell you that Vanilla Ice is coming this fall.
All right.
As a child of the 90s, I can appreciate that. So you're going to see some entertainment in there as well. You're going to see multi-sport events. It can host volleyball. It can host gymnastics. It can host a variety of sports, entertainment, and corporate events, and that's what we're designing this for.
I know some of the G League teams have been through the arena and were impressed. In fact, as I understand it, the G League really has they're all over the board in terms of venues. I think the Lakers amazingly play in their practice facility, which seats a couple hundred people maybe, and it runs the gamut. And as I understand it, the G League is maybe looking at the Noblesville arena as a template of sorts, or a standard maybe for where they'd like to be.
We've already been we've hosted about half the G League teams in the nation here in Noblesville to show them. And I think every NBA owner, I'm sure, was grimacing when they did that, because they saw such a marquee development here. But we want to be the showcase. We want to be able to tell our story to other G League teams and other NBA franchises of how we set this up, how this really is a private-public partnership, how we worked together cohesively to get this deal done for not just Noblesville, but Central Indiana and the entire state of Indiana. So we've got to be more aggressive as a state, and that just doesn't even apply to G Leagues and NBA teams. We need to be more aggressive as a state of telling our story, and this is certainly one piece of that.
What does the arena at Innovation Mile represent for Noblesville? Obviously, it's a venue for basketball and concerts and the like, but is there something more? Is this a symbol of the future in a sense, a new front door?
It's funny, our downtown in Noblesville, we have a hallmark Town Square, Courthouse Square, and that's really been our bread and butter. It's what a lot of people think of when they think of Noblesville. But I would think of, as we look to the future, a lot of folks, that exit 210 area is going to be the front door to Hamilton County, to central Indiana, and to Noblesville. You saw 7 million visitors visit Hamilton Town Center last year alone. So that is quickly becoming the front door. This is really a catalyst for that whole eastern corridor in our community. Innovation Mile itself is a 600-acre master plan site that's going to be home to the jobs of the future, the workforce of the future, the entertainment of the future. And this has already, in its few short years of even just being under development, has sparked massive attention for that I-69 corridor. And again, I think as we look as a state to the future, we've got to be in the game when it comes to life sciences and medical devices and advanced manufacturing. And this arena is going to anchor that area that helps drive our economy of the state of the future.
Noblesville, I believe, is Hamilton County's oldest city.
It is 201 years young.
Yeah, so oldest city in Hamilton County. But does this development, not just the arena, but Innovation Mile, symbolism, I guess, of what's next for Noblesville?
I would say so. At the same time, we take a lot of pride in our history. You referenced it there. We're 201 years young. The name itself, the Noblesville Boom, yes, it has a ton of Slick Leonard, Boomer, Boom Baby, analogy, tie-in with the Pacers. But, Noblesville was founded 201 years ago on a natural gas boom. So it actually ties all the way back 200 years ago to the roots of our community. It is a booming community. We're one of the fastest growing in the Midwest. So I do think it is symbolic of our next chapter. But at the same time, I want to caution by saying, it's very much rooted in history, and everything we do, we take through a lens of our past, because it's so important of where we've been. But again, we have to, it better than anybody. We're either growing or dying in the state of Indiana as a community, and really in the nation. And we're growing, and we're going to be a part of it. And we're going to do it in a sustainable way, and in a way that is a major player in the state of Indiana, and we're proud of that.
You mentioned Innovation Mile, and I guess you could say that the arena anchors that Innovation Mile. Innovative businesses. One business that, and I'm not sure if they've left yet, but BorgWarner, major facility right in the heart of the Innovation Mile. As you look at that property, are there efforts underway, or can you give us any idea of if there may be another tenant, a new tenant, if you will, for the BorgWarner facility?
Exactly. BorgWarner made a corporate nationwide decision to kind of do some consolidation the last couple of years, which we fully respect. They've been a great corporate partner for not just Noblesville, but Indiana, as you well know. Obviously, a loss of them and a consolidation of them is never great. But I can tell you, if you'll bear with us for about 2 or 3 more weeks, I bet you'll hear a great tenant that's going to be taking their place that fits their mold and is a very well-known name in the state of Indiana and the nation. So we're excited. We're not concerned about it, and I think you'll hear about that very soon. I will also say we have a $40 million Indiana Orthopedic Institute, which is right next door to the Arena Innovation Mile. Dr. Michael Meneghini and his team that are the lead orthopedic replacement institute in the state of Indiana. They're not only just doing surgeries there on hips and knees and all those things, they are doing research there and bettering that practice going forward. And as you look at an aging demographic in the state with baby boomers retiring, and that is going to be an important area to make sure that we have strong research and in the life science space. And Indiana Orthopedic Institute is a great partner there as well.
Since becoming mayor, I believe the number is $1 billion plus in private investment into Noblesville. What's, in your view, I'm sure there are several factors, but in your view, is there one thing that's really driving that investment?
And I will say your number is a little bit. We're closing in on $4 billion actually in Noblesville in almost 6 years of private investment. That's really important. Just private investment, and we're proud of that. I think that is because we have cast a vision. Government is not here to create jobs. Government is here to support the private sector as they take the risk and make investment. We've come alongside private investors, put in infrastructure, make sure your roads are built, your sewers are there, your toilets flush. Core function of government. That is what we have done. And I think that bold leadership, that bold vision has really allowed and given some confidence to the private sector to come alongside us in that. So we're going to continue telling our story. I say, Hoosier humility is a wonderful thing. We're so proud of being the humble Hoosiers that we are. But, quite frankly, we need to chuck some of that to the side. And we need to be a little bit, and you're doing a great job helping us do that, Gary, by bringing on great leaders to tell our story. We've got to tell our story. And not just in Noblesville, not just Hamilton County, but all corners of our state. We got to go in and understand what communities need and want, come alongside them, tell their story, and be aggressive, and let Hoosiers know that their communities. You should want more for your communities. Every community is unique, but every community I know wants to continue to be unique, and they want to continue to keep people there and keep generational people there. We've got to go tell that story and make sure Hoosiers know that from all corners of the state.
As you look, though, specifically, I couldn't agree more in terms of getting the story out from every corner of the state, but focusing on Hamilton County, which I think is an amazing story. If you look at what's going on in Noblesville, Fishers, Carmel, Westfield, all of those communities have their own deals going on in a big way in terms of investment and private investment and their strategies for going forward. You've got to be competitive to a sense with I know you're friends with all the mayors there, but is there a competitive streak in there too?
Oh, 100%. I would say the four of us here, Mayor Scott Fatness, Sue Finkham, and Scott Willis, and I text all the time. And I consider them three very close friends of mine. At the same time, I will relish the day that I get to beat them in an economic development announcement all the time. It's wonderful. I was super jealous last week when my friend Scott Willis landed Ed Carpenter Racing. Right. I'm a big race. I've been to 33 Indy 500s. And so, I was super jealous, but really proud of Scott and what he's doing. And that made sense for Ed over in Grand Park. Scott Fatness, thank God he's running out of room, man. I've come in second to that guy multiple times. But at the end of the day, you and I both know that, a job that lands in Noblesville is going to have residents in Fishers, and a company that goes to Carmel and Sioux, what she's doing to revitalize that 31 corridor is going to have a massive impact on Noblesville. We've got to stop thinking just as a community. We've got to think as a region. We're not necessarily competing with each other. We're competing with Columbus, Ohio, Nashville, Tennessee, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Denver, Colorado, and the list goes on. And we've got to think that we're all on the same team here, rowing in the same direction, and the entire state needs to be doing that as well. We can't take our foot off the gas. We have a lot to offer in Indiana, but keeping it to ourselves is not going to get us anywhere. But yes, super competitive. Like I said, I love to beat them 6 ways to Sunday. At the same time, we're all in this together.
You talk about regional cooperation, if you will, collaboration. How would you sense, because that's been as you know, a big issue for many years, and not just in central Indiana, but every corner of the state, the region, getting regions to work together has been a challenge. I think it's getting a lot better. How would you assess that here in central Indiana?
I will say, what we have done in the past 3 years in terms of regionalism in central Indiana far outpaces what we've done in 30 years. And I give a lot of credit to my friend Scott Fatness and Fishers has really led the charge on that regional conversation. We launched several years ago the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority, CIRDA. I'm vice chair of that. Mayor Fatness is chair of that. That is designed to think cohesively and not just on terms of a branding strategy. We're partnering with our good friends at the Indy Chamber of Commerce. Matt Benjamin and his team are helping with some branding for the region, but we're talking about economic strategy in central Indiana. Again, it goes back to what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And, what a company that comes to Indiana at the end of the day may not make sense in Noblesville, but it may make sense in Franklin. And my buddy Steve Barnett down there, making sure that they're prepared to accept that business and bring them into the region. And yes, there's competitive nature, but yes, we as a region have got to be globally competitive. So I'm proud of the effort that we've done. We've just started to really engage the last couple of weeks, the private sector to come alongside us with some investments to understand their needs. As government leaders, we're great messengers. We can come alongside and deliver, and tell that story, but we need to understand what the private sector needs. What does that workforce need look like? What do our educational partners need in terms of talent pipeline and skilling up the workforce? So I think we are all singing from the same sheet of music for the first time probably in 3 decades, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing.
Think back to when you came into office 5+ years ago. You had a vision for what you wanted to accomplish. Now, be honest, as we're sitting here in July of 2025, did you envision this amount of growth of activity, of private investment? As you said, $4 billion in private investment. Was that something you envisioned at that time?
I can't say I envisioned that number. I knew my community, my hometown, a place that I consider America's hometown, had something to offer a lot of people. And I know my deputy mayor, Matt Light, one of my closest advisors. I remember during COVID, we had a great vision, then COVID hit, right? And that was the great equalizer. No one knew what they were doing in COVID, in terms of being mayor and leading through that. It was a day by day operation to understand that, but I remember Matt leaning over to me and said, let's bet on Noblesville. Let's bet on this community. And in 2020 alone, we announced over $150 million of private investment in our downtown in the midst of a global pandemic. And I think when that happened, to me, I knew we had the secret sauce. We were onto something. And so I didn't envision that number being where it's at today, but I knew my community was capable of it, and I knew we had something to offer.
Much more ahead with Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen. When we return, we'll talk about the balancing act, growth and investment in keeping Noblesville, that Noblesville charm and character that has been developed over many years, and also Chris Jensen's path to the mayor's office. That's when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
We build Indiana. The Laborers International Union of North America are men and women building roads and bridges to get Hoosiers where they're going today and a new energy infrastructure that will keep Indiana competitive tomorrow. LIUNA's over 12,000 statewide members also grow local economies, earning good union wages, shopping where they live and work, and paying taxes. We build Indiana for good jobs and stronger communities. The Laborers International Union of North America. We are LIUNA.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is a very busy guy, Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen, who is about to christen, to open up the new arena at Innovation Mile. It will be the home to the Indiana Pacers G League team, the Noblesville Boom. And Mayor, I think the first, certainly one of the first, maybe official events at the arena will be your State of the City address, I think.
Yes, in 2 weeks from Friday, here coming up on August 8th, will be my State of the City address, and such an honor to be able to open that event with that address. It's going to have a basketball theme to it. We're going to talk about our past, our present, and some challenges we have in front of us, and then what does the future look like. So we're excited to get those doors open. We did have the Noblesville Boom had a youth basketball camp in July, which was great. They let some kids in there to flush toilets and make sure all those great things work, which is always good before you host a big corporate event. But from that moment on, we're off to the races there at the arena.
As you talk about the balancing act, Noblesville has a great brand, if you will, around history and a historic downtown and a pretty cool downtown. How do you balance these high impact, high profile projects, big investment in innovative companies and those types of things, while at the same time preserving that charm and character that residents obviously love?
They love and expect, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges I face every day is, we have a historic community that is so proud of that history. I'm proud of that history. And so, going forward, though, we try to work that history into new developments. We try to honor the past there. And I use example of, Steve Hinkie and his team announced an 1,100 acre new development just north of Innovation Mile called Gatewood Lakes. The Gatewood family owned that farmland for years. They're the ones who sold that to Steve Hinkie. So honoring the past with naming opportunities, downtown Noblesville, the Levinson, for example, which is a mixed use development we opened 6 years ago. The lobby is filled with bricks from the original historic opera house that sat on that site. So I think the attention to detail, the intentionality of the decisions that we're making, we also are making sure that we're partnering with businesses that not just want to be here, but want to be a part of Noblesville. We ask them to dive in and to volunteer on boards and to get their hands dirty when it comes to volunteering in Noblesville Main Street, for example, the Chamber of Commerce. We're not checking boxes here. We are boots on the ground, asking you to be a part of the community. So I think that culture is important. And I would say Noblesville may be the 9th largest city in the state of Indiana, but it still has a very hometown feel. And we're proud of that. We're going to continue to work on that.
You mentioned earlier your state of the city will focus on what's next, but also challenges. Can you give us an idea from where you sit in the mayor's office? What are the biggest couple of challenges you think Noblesville faces today?
Sure. I think as we grow, always making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to support that growth. Now, there are folks that I hear all the time that, just build all the roads first before we build any new houses. And we'd love to do that. At the same time, that's not the way our economy functions. It's not the way our tax structure works. And we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. And we're certainly capable of doing that. So I think that balance is key. Also, making sure that we can do more with less. We have been challenged by our friends at the legislature to really take a look at our funding streams. And obviously the property tax conversation this past legislative session was a robust one. And but that's going to have some challenges in our funding streams. We're looking to reduce our intended revenue by about $6 million a year the next 4 years. That has a challenge to us. The governor several months ago said to local cities and towns across the state, prove it that you guys are making smart investments and handling your finances. And I point back to that $4 billion in private investment, Gary, that we've seen in 5 years. I point to the fact that we've had a balanced budget all 6 years and a steady maintained tax rate the past 5 years, that we've done more with less. I think we are proving it every day, and we're showing it. The proof's in the pudding, and it's in the data, and we're showing that. So, obviously balancing that infrastructure with our growth and the financial challenges that we're going to see going forward is key.
Talk about your path to the mayor's office. You are a Miller, right? You've lived in Noblesville your entire life.
President of the class of 2002. I was actually at freshman orientation yesterday for my oldest child in the auditorium that I was in as a high school student. And the assistant principal for the ninth grade was my ninth grade English teacher, Melinda Miller. So I royally embarrassed my oldest son yesterday sitting in that auditorium.
That's good. Well, I'm sure a lot of memories about that, and I'm sure that shapes your leadership as well. Talk about your entry into politics. No, you were on the city council there. You worked in the Daniels administration, I believe, and so you've been in politics for a while. Is that where did that interest in politics, public service, come from?
I've always loved the government process. I love the political process. I interned at what really started for me in 2006 for a guy named Luke Kinley, former state senator, chairman of the budget committee, who I'm going to see this afternoon. Still lives in Noblesville, as a mentor of mine. I interned for him. I wanted to go to law school because I'm not sure why. I just thought that was the right path for me. He sat me down and basically told me I wouldn't be a very good attorney, which, if you know Luke Kinley, he's a blunt deliverer of facts, and he was dead. And I needed to hear that. And so I actually shifted gears, and he finessed it a little bit nicer than that. But that's how I took it as a fragile 22-year-old at the time. But I ended up getting a job with a person named Becky Skillman, who was the first female elected lieutenant governor of the state of Indiana, and probably one of the epitome of Hoosier hospitality and kindness.
Great.
I got to work for her for the better part of 6 or 7 years. I traveled to all 92 counties with her. I went on a foreign delegation. We were only the second state to visit Vietnam after the Vietnam War, and so went in 2006 with her to Taiwan and Vietnam. And then that really jump-started my career. I stayed in the Pence administration for a few years when he was governor of the state of Indiana, then took some time to go to the private sector and work for the civil engineering world, and again use my contacts to meet with mayors and county commissioners across the state to learn about infrastructure projects. And then had a chance to run for the city council at the urging of my predecessor, Mayor John Ditzler. Did that, and really never intended on being the political candidate. Always enjoyed the process, but I love my hometown. I love my city. I love my state. And so when he decided to retire, I spent about a year trying to find somebody else to run for mayor. And the finger kept pointing back to me. And I felt like maybe I was the one that could bridge the gap in Noblesville to, really, I am a lifelong Miller, but I was in my 30s. I was 35 when I was elected mayor. That was a big shift for our community, but it's been the ride of a lifetime. It's the pleasure of a lifetime. I can't believe I get to be mayor of my hometown and help shape my community for my kids going forward.
As you look going forward at Noblesville, so much going on now, so much I know in the pipeline as well. But as you look at Noblesville and say 5-10 years down the road, how would you describe Noblesville, the Noblesville, if you will, of the future?
I think it'll continue to be that authentic, genuine community that it is today. It'll be a little bit bigger. I think we will be the largest city in Hamilton County when it's all said and done, simply because we have the landmass to do that. That will happen over time. We'll probably be in the top 5 in the state of Indiana, but I still think you'll see a community that it values its history, values its people, values the culture here in this community. It'll be a city that has something for everybody. We have the White River that flows through downtown. That'll never change. I think you'll see more restaurants and shopping and residents on that White River, which is a good thing. We have Morris Reservoir, which is a wonderful place to spend a weekday out thinking on a boat. I think we will very much still have the number 1 ranked outdoor amphitheater in the world in Ruoff Music Center. I think that'll even be enhanced. I think they're on the verge of making some major investments into that facility to upgrade it. And I think it'll have the jobs of the future. I think it'll have the companies that will drive Indiana's economy into the next decade, and also will be training the workforce of the future. So I think a lot will stay the same in terms of the feel of the community. It'll probably look a little different, but we're going to continue to make those investments to make sure that we can sustain that growth going forward.
Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen. Mayor Jensen, it's really been great to catch up with you and to hear about everything going on in your city, which is substantial. And I think your profile is going to continue to increase with the Noblesville boom, getting the attention and that name, which I think is perfect, which, I talked to Todd Taylor with the Pacers some time ago, and he said, that process of selecting a name really was not just a flippant kind of thing. They did a lot of research and a lot of effort that really went into that.
They spent a ton of time talking to the community, interviewing historians, understanding, and I appreciate that. I really enjoy getting a front row seat to do that. I wanted nothing to do with the name. I learned a long time ago that you get blamed for everything as mayor, so I didn't want it, other than the fact that Noblesville needed to be in it. I wanted nothing to do with it, but they brought some final selections, and I was so impressed by, first of all, I've been so impressed by Pacers Sports Entertainment. Talk about a corporation that isn't just knee deep in a community. They are all in, and they have been all in Noblesville and supporting our efforts. But they've been a wonderful partner and did a great job on the thorough research of this name.
Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen. Mayor, thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. We're a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
The economy and the market are in a hairy place these days. It's up a lot, it's down a lot, it's sideways, and it seems on the hour. There's breaking news coming out of all areas of the country. How do you get your head around that? How do you not go crazy in the process? I'm Peter Dunn. You may know me as Pete the Planner, IBJ columnist, and my job for years has been to help you understand your financial life better in context with everything else going on. So what am I encouraging you to do? Well, listen to the Pete the Planner Show. Yeah, it's a podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts, or simply listen at ibjpodcasts.com.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media podcast network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.